Let's fucking do it, goddammit.
So 4 hit points. That just seems like too few to me. What do you think?
You got Purgles behind you or what?
Yeah, it's Purgles.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm not original. I rotate between the same 2 or 3 forest pictures.
I try to,
depending on what I'm wearing.
If I have the time, I try to do a new one every time.
Yep.
But I don't often have the time. So the Star Wars map is the default.
At least your background changes. We still have a fucking Nigerian flag on like the last 10 episodes.
Nah, I fixed them.
Okay. I'm just fucking with you anyway. I don't give a shit. Maybe we should find something generic though. Rather than putting the title on the title card. I don't know. A lot of people do that and it makes a lot of sense, but it just takes more effort.
Yeah, I was thinking about putting, I mean, I don't have to stick to the title card. You could absolutely use like a descriptor from the show. I see that a lot, where like, we know we're talking about Ahsoka, be like, Ahsoka dies with like an arrow that's red and maybe something circled. And then we never talk about that though. Total clickbait. I think
no.
I think the few people that follow us would love that. So what was this about 4 hit points? Well, maybe. What was this about 4 hit points?
I thought you said we were going to do it once we went live.
Oh, okay. Well, then go ahead and do the introduction.
Are we live?
Bro, we've been live.
We've been live? You have to fuck
second because I realized I was going through the VPN and that doesn't work very well. Reconnect. Sorry about that, everyone. We were experiencing bad connection.
And we were talking about Pathfinder.
There we go.
And only having to roll for hit points and not adding your Constitution bonus
I don't see him
is some bullshit. Because I have 4 fucking hit points at level 1, and I will maybe get like 6 at level 2. And at some point, you're like, the challenges we're being put up against are too fucking deadly to even make this fun.
That over again. We didn't have it.
So,
what did you say?
was that intentional?
No, I was behind a VPN and turned it off.
Oh, so are we still streaming?
We are now. Yeah, go.
We are what?
So anyway, I said we are now. Go. Anyway, so you said there was something about 4 hit points.
Yeah, we just had to roll, and he's like, "No, you're rolling a D10 or whatever your class was." And I was a D10 for a ranger, and then he's like, "And you don't add you're not going to add your Constitution bonus," which I'm like, "Cool, I wish I knew that."
Yeah,
but we rolled for stats, and then it was in sequence, so you couldn't like be like, "Oh, I want to play this character." It was weird because it was like, just roll the dice and then build your concept off what the dice say. And
yeah,
every once in a while, I've ever been in a position where like,
that's because most DMs know better. Every once in a while, you'll read about this. It never goes well because people will just like kill off their character on purpose in order to get a roll another character. Like, just do point buy system. GMs, you're not being creative. It's not going to be fun. One time, the only time I've read about anything like that where it ended up being fun was the GM was just like hardcore, like this is going to be it, blah blah. It's like, but I do want to do a session 0 so we can kind of get used to the, the way the game's going to be. And at the end of session 0, he's like, "All right, and that's a total party wipe. You now know the world. Now make your real characters." So like, it's the only time I've ever read about it going.
That's what he called this one. He's like, "Oh, it's going to be a hardcore campaign."
Dude, get out of there. Get out of there.
I think I'm still going to play.
It sounds terrible. Let me know how.
Yeah, but I mean, if he kills me, I'm not going to make a new character because like I won't like I'm about telling a story. It was kind of interesting because he said in the Discord, he's like, "Well, now you're making my job hard because me and then another person have put in so much effort into thinking about our characters and backstories and like really kind of thinking out what we want with the concept."
Right.
And trying to make those concepts fit within like a broader team, right? Have like all the bases covered or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
For your adventuring party. Yeah, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna have to write like good stories instead of making it up." It's like, yeah, you fucking better. If you're just gonna like if you just want us to make like Smash characters to like play with like a kind of obscure or like rules that don't happen very often, like falling and shit like that,
Yeah.
then by all means, then let's just do that. But like, I'm not going to spend whatever I spent 2.5, 3, 4 hours rolling up a character, and I bought a core rule book, right,
Yeah.
so that I could actually understand the process of making a character and stuff. So, hopefully,
I
I
can't
get
believe you
more
bought a
mileage
core
out of it.
rulebook. It's not
What's
even the
that?
current. I can't believe you bought a core rulebook. It's not even the current edition. I hope it was cheap.
But you
Used.
said the second edition was fucking
It's chunky.
even more convoluted.
It is.
So I got first edition. So if I want
Pathfinder,
to
by
play
the
a
way.
fantasy setting,
Yeah.
because I don't have a D&D core rule book or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
just
this
have
is like, now I have a setting. If I want to play a fantasy setting, I have a
That's
rule
true.
book to work with.
That's true. I just think it's going to get harder and harder to follow. Like, I just don't like Pathfinder 2E on account of how difficult it is without someone who's like willing to read the entire book and like go into
Yeah,
detail, guiding you. Like, without that, making a character is rough.
there's just too much like, oh, at this level you get this, but at this level you get this other thing, and then there's these abilities, but they're specific to your class or
Yeah.
specific to your race that unlock at these levels, and I'm like, blah.
It requires a
I just
shitload of
like buy
planning. Is the hard part.
attributes. Here's a
Yeah.
bunch of points. You can buy
Yeah.
attributes, buy skills, buy feats or
Yep.
talents, I guess, talent trees, right?
Yep. And this is
That
why everyone should play
superior.
Genesis. Oh, the Genesis system is even better than the Star Wars system was, because they like kind of changed how talent trees work. They're like, oh, here's a talent tree. Like, nothing's connected. You have to buy something from, or I think you don't even have to buy something from each tier. Like, you can just save up and go straight to the bottom. Or maybe it's like, oh, you got to buy one at each tier. I forget. It's been a while since I read the rules, but there's no longer like, little branching choices.
You're
in the
not
trees.
railroaded into taking
Yeah.
shit you don't really want.
Exactly.
Which could make things OP, because there's not like, that was kind of almost intentional. They're like, we can't go straight there because then it's too few character points to get like a really good ability. So they kind of made a more service route to you to work harder.
Yeah, I don't mind if you have to get like something from each previous tier to get to the next one. That's totally fine. That is legitimate.
Unlock tier 1, unlock tier 2.
Yeah. Like, that makes sense to me. But yeah, like having it. There were plenty of times where it's like, oh, this character really, really needs this extra healing ability, but I have to get this thing over here for charm, and I don't charm people or something like that. So it was a lot of lost XP that way. But yeah, Pathfinder 2E, chunky, can't figure it out. And Pathfinder first edition is very much like 3.5, so I figured that out pretty quick.
Yeah, I grabbed while I was on, because I rarely get on Drive Through RPG and search around for shit. And so I did get a copy of Genesis, and I've talked for a long time. I wanted to do like a survival, but since like that system is meant for the system is kind of meant for like cinematic, kind of almost larger than life play in a lot of ways. I don't think it has to go that way, because you can just interpret your dice down. You don't have to make it really fucking awesome if you don't want to.
I definitely knew a lot of people who were like, oh yeah, I'll regain strain. It's like, you have like 3 advantage. You could do a lot with that.
Oh yeah, just using 3 advantage for recovering strain, and you're like,
yeah, exactly.
No, you probably want to use that for like unlocking this ability, or like you getting a crit, right? Like if your weapon has a crit that low or whatever. I think actually most weapons have a crit of 3. Isn't that kind of standard?
Usually like 3 to 5, yeah.
3 to 5.
And anything under that is pretty rare.
Yeah, usually you're using
Vibro.
Using up hard points for fucking extra boost to your crit or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or just generating advantages. Anyway, Bulgaria.
Yeah, so just some just general stuff. I'm hoping maybe I'll I still want to co-write and run a campaign with you, a Star Wars campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
I would also be interested in potentially writing and running any kind of campaign with you, including if we wanted to do like a modern type survivalist. I got a zombie apocalypse is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Oriented towards that, since that's kind of more cinematic and maybe a little less real. Like,
yeah.
And then it also creates like a lot more just kind of like terrain threats, in the sense of like, your complaint was like the zombies are just kind of an obstacle. They're not really what the movie's about.
Well, and then like if you fall down and there's zombies down there, it's a real threat. as opposed to like just falling down or just zombies. You're like, oh yeah, they're gonna fuck me up if I fall down there. Shit. Yeah, I think that'd be a real fun type of setting. And then of course, when it comes to zombies, the same reasoning as with droids applies, where you can kill them all you want because they're not human. Hey.
Right. Yeah, I thought that would be a fun setting because I definitely would like to do more exploration of ideas of like survival and managing through crises.
Yeah, I was also going. Are you one in my head that was going to be set in like Star Wars kind of world where like um, everybody just comes into the world and I kind of introduce it as we go. Where people are like, whoa, what the hell? Kind of like wake up with no memory and just slowly discover the world and the technology there within, and kind of like reintroduce everyone to themselves. And just do an exploration of like a future where everything is really integrated with technology, and what does that mean when the worst happens.
Yeah, interesting.
Like I put all my data on my phone, and if I ever lost it, I'm fucked.
Dude, you know how crazy it is when I just try and access a website through a different browser or through my phone or whatever, and like because like almost all of my passwords are saved in the same fucking browser.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, fuck, if I can't get to my desktop, like I have to basically reset my password.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, you are listening to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to talk about the events and ideas that will shape uncertain futures. Sometimes that involves just kind of entertaining ourselves through the madness of it all, and sometimes it's using tools of entertainment like role-playing games to explore concepts of friendship and betrayal and surviving apocalypses.
Yes.
I'm your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach. And we've already kind of done our introduction, so let's get into the meat and
Bulgarian potatoes
of the matter. Wait, the meat or tofu of the matter, and that is Shooting the Poodoo, episode 33.
Correct.
I was out of town Thursday. I expected to be out of town till today.
How many
pigs
did you
with you
slaughter?
offline about that.
Yeah.
But I decided to come home early, and I think it was the right decision for me.
I imagine I already know why.
Yeah, it probably has to do with lack of fucking ability to wash your hands.
Yeah.
It really bugs me. Fucking hippies, come on, man, wash your fucking hands.
Yep, that is the one thing I found out that I really enjoy doing. When I went camping, it's like, no, it can never be clean.
It will never be clean. Yeah, exactly. At any rate, so we weren't here Thursday, so today we're going to talk about last week's episode of Ahsoka on the eve of episode 7, the penultimate episode. Can you believe we're already finished with this season? I am really annoyed. I think that all of the long form stuff, like Mando being 8 episodes, is probably okay. But I wish that more shows did the fucking Andor format. Like 3 episode, 3 or 4 episode arcs. 12 episodes for a season.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You do these arcs, you have one to lead it off, you do a few arcs, you have one to wrap it all up, boom, you're done.
Nothing's going to be as good as Andor, man. Because it's what you want out of Star Wars, which is like focusing on the normal people doing the normal things with their normal abilities.
Within a galaxy far, far away.
Yes, so exactly.
You're like, wow, I would assume that like they just had algorithms that managed all this data. Oh, there's too much data for computers to do it.
Yeah. Well, like
here's a cubicle farm.
When it comes to Star Wars, like the environment can help to tell the story so much, or it can be a Purgle that migrates so it can get fuel for hyperdrive jumps that it needs in order to jump so it can get fuel for hyperspace jumps. I don't fucking understand who does the consulting on like the ecology of things. It definitely doesn't seem like anyone at Star Wars thinks about it, because like some Purgle have teeth, some have baleen. It's never mention that they eat anything. They just try to get this clouds on 36 shit so that they can move from place to place, even though if is that what they eat? Is that how they, get all their energy is this stuff? If it's not, it doesn't make any sense unless they like need it to reproduce or something. The whole evolution of the Purrgil just seems completely unthought of, which is upsetting for something that they plan to make so big. And from reading about it,
Well, I
Filoni
think
did
you're
intend to make it
overthinking it.
huge.
I think
Overthinking.
well, yeah, no, but I think that when you get it into the nitty-gritty of it, is that they're kind of like timeless beings. Like there's this like, okay, there is a beginning and there is an end, but there are also elements of our universe that transcend any concept of time. They just are. It's literally like fucking God, right? In religion. It's like it just is.
But they die though. They've shown it.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
They
And
do.
apparently
You're
there's
right.
enough bacteria in
They are an
space
organism
for them to decompose.
in space.
Yep, in space, in vacuum. Yeah. 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 Anyway, Purrgil cool, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I never really understood that either because they smashed through the windows of Star Destroyers
Yeah.
and then went into hyperspace. And I'm like, wait a second. How did they not all get fucking sucked into the vacuum of space when
Oh
they
yeah.
left the atmosphere?
My guess would be that it's a ship of war, and so it has sealable bulkheads, and people just retreated farther within the superstructure of the ship, and that would explain why
Okay,
the
well, they
outside
were
of the
on
ship
the
looks
bridge when that
fucked.
shit jumped to hyperspace.
That okay? I'm not gonna make too many excuses. Star Wars is full of fucking potholes, man, and Purrgils suck.
It's space fantasy. It doesn't need to make sense.
Anywho,
You keep your fucking science and Star Trek, you nerd.
so Hu Yang, he's cool. He continues to be cool. I like
Hu
that,
Yang
like,
and Balin, I think universal
yeah,
among the online community discussing this television show. Hu Yang and Balin Skull are the MVPs of this show.
yeah. Well, I think what I liked about this one, I mean, he was only at the beginning because they did one where it was just like, let me tell you a story, and then they never showed him again, which I think was the right choice. But I like that he is basically asking her or like getting a story from her, and like it's not just two beings exchanging information for pleasantries. Like he's an archive, and so he's still even in the modern era like documenting what will very soon be history, which I thought was pretty cool. Like droids are awesome, when they're not just like there for slapstick stuff and they're actually there for a purpose, and they fulfill that purpose very well. Because like a lot of the droids don't, like I'm a power droid, I provide power, and you're like, cool, that doesn't move the story forward at all. This guy's like, I repair shit and chronicle things. And you're like,
And I never really understood why you needed to have a droid to deliver power. Like,
yeah,
why not just a generator or a big battery? And
yeah,
it's
and then
basically what they are.
yeah,
The
it's
walking battery.
someone with like, you know what it is?
Because
It's
God
fucking
forbid you have a little repulsor lift
dude. It's
that
fucking
follows you.
It's fucking space capitalism, man. Somebody was like, "Are you tired of moving around your batteries? Get the new Gonk Droid. Gonk Droid is a battery. It'll go wherever you need to go. It's got legs. It can do stairs and shit."
And someone's like, you wear this thing on your wrist and you can program it to have this device follow you and it just floats around. It's a fucking battery. Like,
Yeah, and they're like, "We already have those." Yeah, but it doesn't have a cute little form factor. With
does yours go? "Bonk, bonk"?
uh,
No.
uh,
Yeah, and then of course, like the Bad Batch actually made Gonki like a legitimate character.
yeah,
Gonk droids were always just kind of like background from the original trilogy. And
yeah,
then, because the original trilogy was all we had for decades,
yeah,
everybody obsessed over every detail of
yeah.
them.
And Skippy the Wonder
Yeah,
Droid.
and it was just superficial background bullshit in that until the Bad Batch.
Yep.
And then of course Omega, because it's a kid's show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, but he's Gonky, he's our friend. And you're like, he's
Yeah.
actually fucking supposed to be stupid.
Speaking of shit that kids love, those little aliens with the
Burgle.
hermit shell. No, the little aliens with the hermit
Oh.
shells.
We
Those are
usually
gonna.
lead off with a politics story and then talk
No,
about fucking
man. No,
Star
man. We're
Wars.
fucking doing Ahsoka. I'm
We're
already
doing
into
the
it.
Ahsoka first. Yeah, I
Balls
actually
deep in
they're
Ahsoka
called
right
the
now.
Naughty
Naughty or
N-O-T-I.
something like that. Yeah. But
I like them.
I sense a great disturbance in the economy as if millions of people pulled out their wallets and bought plushies.
Yes.
Like
Well, they
that's
know what the fuck they're
that's what's gonna
doing.
like it literally tucks into itself. It's so much like those toys that they had when I was a kid where they're like, oh, it's a pillow. Oh, it's a toy. And it's the same
You
thing.
know, honestly, like I don't know. I thought the world building was pretty good.
Compared to a lot of
I
the
liked
ones, yeah.
that new species. I thought it was interesting.
They were
I
fun.
compare that introduction to a new species, and then compare that to like the Porg,
Mm,
like the Porgs.
must we?
I liked the Porgs. I didn't think they were bad,
I
but
mean, they were
also
just
like
a
they
little bit of
really
a
didn't
reverence.
advance the story at all.
Yeah, I mean, not
Where
everything
these
has
were
to.
much more like the introduction of the Ewoks, where they were like
Yeah.
kind of quirky and kind of cute and obviously meant to fucking sell merch, but also served a story purpose.
Yeah, and apparently they're like fucking, freedom fighters or some shit like that. Following
Maybe.
Ezra around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they already had their culture and then he kind of joined them because it was the safest place for him to be. And he probably sensed their just general good nature, right?
Yeah.
Because even the one that she confronted with a face with a doubt never got aggressive.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was just like,
I
get your
don't
dog
think, right? They
thing.
kind of just like hide in their shells
Yeah, yeah.
as a
That
defensive
is a thing.
maneuver, but I never saw them be aggressive.
Yeah. I'm really
Um,
hoping that they'll be like Ewoks and they'll just be like fucking shit up with spears or something.
yeah, and then kind of be like, yeah, and I saw a lot of comparisons where they're basically like referring to them as like either like Roma or as like hippies or as like trailer
Mm.
park kids because like they lived at a trailer park
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Well, trailer parks
Which
don't move.
right, exactly. Well,
Yes.
it's a mobile home park. It
Yeah.
has mobile in the name, but then the
Nothing
deeper you dig
moves.
into it, you're like, oh, this isn't mobile.
Yeah, none of this moves. Nobody ever
I just
leaves.
don't get to own the land my house is on.
Nobody can afford to leave.
Yeah, no one can afford to leave. I really like them a lot. I thought world building wise, like
Mm-hmm.
the set where their village was
Mm-hmm.
visually intriguing. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like just kind of little elements,
Yeah.
their little cooking lamps or whatever, and all their other stuff. They had high technology, which it
Right.
never really explained like what this planet's connection with other planets in the galaxy is. In like
It's it.
Star Wars, it's always assumed that like if there's a planet with people, there's at least some kind of periodic trade that's taking place. And for like a severe
Yeah.
backwater world, it might only be once every few rotations or whatever the equivalent of a
Days.
week or a month is.
Yeah.
But traders would generally find it to be profitable to engage in that kind of economy.
Yeah. What I find interesting
But they
about
had high technology,
yeah,
right?
Peridia is supposed to be extragalactic. Like it's at the end of that migration route, and so it's not even in the galaxy far, far away. It's in a galaxy
No,
farther.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. It's farther away, which for me immediately brought it into question. So, like, okay, cool. Elsbeth claims that the Night Sisters originated here and then rode the Purgils over to our galaxy, which implies so many things. It must in the canon we already know that like hyperspace was from the Purgils, and then we learned to copy it somehow. And so, like, yeah, the first travelers who were going to take advantage of the Purgils would have had to just find a way to like tag along, basically.
Yeah.
And so that means that Peridia is far enough away from other star systems that other means of migration off the planet were inviable. And so you basically have a species that has probably mined and extracted as much as they can out of their planet to the point where they need to leave and they're willing to risk space whale travel in order to get away from their planet. Things are that bad. So that's without even doing any world building on the part of Disney, like that's the conclusion I can come to just based upon what pushes people to migrate. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it must be a very isolated system, which makes sense if it's on the edge of the galaxy. Like anything out in the tips of the arms is pretty far away from anything else. So basically, like life just popped up on this very isolated place, and they're like, "Well, we ruined our planet. Let's see where these whales are going." You know? I'm sure they might have, like sent people off. If they're like, "Oh, they come back like every decade or so. Let's just send off a few people and figure it out, and then we can, figure it out after that."
Yeah.
You
I
know.
think there's a little more to it. I think
Mm,
that there's a ton of fucking theories, and a lot of
of
them are
course.
really dialing in on probably what's going to be the case. I was originally thinking they're after like Rakatan artifacts,
Mm,
but some people are saying that in one of the games there's a ancient race of like the first Force users or whatever
yeah.
called Zepho, I think they call them.
Yeah, I think that was in
Um,
one of the new video games with Kyle Kestis.
yeah, with Cal Kestis, yeah.
Cal Kestis, there we go. Yeah. Cal Katarn.
Yeah.
Mixed waters.
Um, but anyway, they're basically saying that like potentially these Force users, and there's like this kind of long story thread in the video game where you kind of see them develop the skill with the Force, and then eventually like infighting and this, that, and the other thing, and then they start
Yeah.
using the Force for bad. But anyway, there's like some kind of already existing connections between them and the Night Sisters, who then
Yes.
would have been migrated and basically brought knowledge of the Force to the galaxy that we think of as the Star Wars galaxy.
Hmm.
Because I don't think Peridia is in like the very edge of that galaxy. I think it's they actually traveled to through the void to a different galaxy. And I think that Peridia and Cetos are basically it's like getting on the Hyperloop,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or getting on
Basically,
a
like every so often they end up at the
express bus. You
yeah,
you don't get to stop in between. These 2
yeah,
points are connected.
yeah.
And that would explain a lot in terms of like every where they built ancient temples
Hmm.
is where they could connect through, they could travel between these planets
Hmm.
again, not having hyperspace travel, using the world between worlds. Basically, it's just like a road that connects all these sacred sites.
Yeah.
And then they could travel there without ever needing hyperspace. It's basically like kind of like if hyperspace was like a physical domain.
Hmm.
That's kind of what they've said the world between worlds kind of is like.
And so was the world between worlds created before all that, or did they have to like get there and set up the infrastructure?
I would assume they'd have to set up infrastructure, but I don't know
Like
because it's all
because
new. Like they're
yeah, yeah,
writing.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like in that instance, it's basically like the Stargates, where it's like, hey, you can't use it to jump from where you are to anywhere you want to go. You have to get there, conventionally, and then set it up, and then join the network.
yeah,
Yeah. So you'd have to do that long period of travel. But I mean, everything here we're talking about like 26,000 years typically is the agreed upon time in between the first hyperspace travel and the modern era of Star Wars.
yeah,
And so that's a lot of time, especially if you're traveling at hyperspace, to get everything all figured out. Like you do a
yeah.
lot of it in
Especially
the
when you
early
travel
days.
around by hyperspace, which is like presumably faster than light. So like you
Yeah.
stop aging every time you go anywhere.
I don't think that works. I don't think that's the case. I think hyperspace
I thought that's the whole fucking
is designed.
relativity, right?
No,
Is that the
hyperspace is
faster
designed
you
to get
move,
you
the slower
around.
time moves?
Yeah, but hyperspace is designed to get you around that. So you're not actually traveling in real space at relativistic speed. You're traveling in hyperspace where the rules are different, and and travel is just naturally faster. Is how I've read about it, as opposed to the more realistic Star Trek, where yes, you're absolutely doing like relativistic things, and if you ever got going too fast, you run into yourself in the past, and that'd be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple things. There was some I didn't see a lot of it. Obviously, I was off grid, so I wasn't really online a lot this week. I did see a few people bring up that they thought Thrawn's introduction was lackluster and that he had a
Hmm.
dad bod, which I thought was a really fucking weird critique to make.
People are also at each other's appearance. The most interesting thing about his appearance to me was the pants. because those were not the correct size of pants. And as a Grand Admiral, you do not wear the wrong size pants unless you have no option, which says to me that they've been here for a long time and they're running out of supplies very quickly.
I think that you're correct, because I think there were elements of his uniform that were clear, like meant to be shown as like mended, and or
Yeah.
like it was not supposed to be a crisp, clean uniform.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought the introduction overall was really fucking good.
Yeah, I don't know what
I'm
people would have
kind of
wanted.
disappointed that they kind of rewrote the theme, because I thought Thrawn's theme music from Rebels was like
Oh,
I thought his theme song was fucking near perfect.
yeah.
And then they took like basic elements of it, but it was different. It was kind of more like there were more layers to the organ. Like they
Mm,
were playing like, much more complex like chords and stuff.
yeah.
And versus like just as simple like me, or whatever, like kind of creepy fucking organ music.
I
And
never would have
but I thought it
noticed.
was so good.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
having a fucking room full of like patched together filthy fucking storm night troopers is what I guess if you put closed caption, a lot of people do that on
Yeah,
their
yeah.
second or third watch through, because then like you get a lot of shit that you would have never got, that they're calling them night troopers.
Yeah, that his name
Um
is Enoch well before they call him Enoch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so Enoch is like, I guess, a character from the fucking Bible who gets into heaven without dying.
Yeah,
Um,
and not only that, but he's like way back to the point where he's in Christian, Jewish, and Muslim texts.
yeah,
Like it's that old of a story.
yeah, right, exactly.
But yes, he gets
Um,
into heaven without dying, and most people that I read about uh, presume that means he basically like was the only person to ever like go to heaven or directly as a human, not as a spirit,
yeah,
except maybe Jesus, because he ascended, if I recall correctly.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
So
he
there you
was
go.
raised from the dead before he ascended. So technically,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
human
So yeah,
demigod or whatever.
he was basically like a proto Jesus. And there's a lot of proto Jesuses, but
There were a lot of them, yeah.
yeah.
In fact, I think like the whole story of Jesus was lifted from some like
Oh
Egyptian
yeah,
myth.
our Mithril, I believe, or Mithra.
Yeah,
Um,
of immaculate birth
There's
and
a
all that other
whole
shit.
bunch of them. Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot
They're
of them.
commonly repeated.
Yeah.
Um, through
Un-
across different cultures too, even ones that didn't have a lot of contact with each other.
yeah. Unfortunately, that makes it kind of hard to nail him down because,
Yeah.
like, he is described differently in different texts. There's a bunch of apocryphal crap, where you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of like questionable canonicity in the Bible, the canonicity of the Bible. So it's like, I don't know what to make of him. You know the cartoons better than I do, and you mentioned that people are saying they're night troopers, which are like undead troopers.
No, I don't think
Aside,
anybody said that they're for certain undead,
okay,
but I thought they're called night troopers, but I think
right,
they're I'll tell you what I think. I
okay,
think that those troopers are undead,
hmm
and I think that they're taking Dathomiri ancestors out of the fucking catacombs,
putting them
and
in
they're
trooper
going
armor.
to use necromancy to
Mm,
reanimate them, not necessarily as a soldier.
yeah,
I think that the relationship between Thrawn and the Night Sisters, I don't know how deep that thread goes. Speaking of
half
threads,
thread.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, but I genuinely think that like where he's like, according to our deal, like, and so they might have been like, we have people in that universe that we can communicate with, or in that galaxy.
Mhm,
We can communicate with them across the galaxy using magic, right?
mhm,
Which would we eventually also call like the world between worlds, like
mhm.
speaking through across space and time, right? Like, um, in a space where space and time doesn't operate according to normal principles
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, and then it's like, and in exchange, if she comes and gets you, like, this is what we want in return, which was to take our ancestors and go back and repopulate some of our sacred worlds in your galaxy.
Do you know
Because remember,
anything?
they were all eliminated.
Yeah.
Because they kept trying to assassinate Dooku after he basically Sidious
Pissed
made
them
him give up
off.
Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
And try and kill her, actually.
Yeah.
Sidious is like, you got to kill her. She's getting too powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're going to try and take my spot as like the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Prove your
show
loyalty.
that you're loyal by killing your apprentice.
Yeah.
And of course, he did try and follow through and tried to kill her, but she didn't fucking die.
Yeah.
And then she had a really interesting arc where she then, over several different episodes, attempted to assassinate him. Assassinate Dooku.
Yeah. Why not?
And, and the Maul was there too, right? Also trying to get back at Palpatine, right? He was pissed. He got abandoned and all that shit. So they were a thorn in the side. And so Palpatine's like, fucking send Grievous over to Dathomir and fucking kill them all.
Yeah.
But as we saw in Rebels,
you just shoot him with Force Lightning. Shoot Grievous with Force Lightning. He go down. Tell me the witches don't have Force Lightning.
I don't have never telekinesis. Saw them use Force Lightning.
That's what gets me. Is like Grievous is not a very big threat if you have like powerful telekinetics or someone with Force Lightning. Like you just grab him and pull him apart. It's fucking that. It's the Force. It doesn't give a shit if he's a cyborg or not.
I think you're right with how much fear he instilled in Jedi. Like you're a Jedi. You don't have to fucking go toe to toe in melee combat, like single combat with this dude.
Yeah,
like
just send Yoda out there.
Use the Force, kind of like Obi-Wan did.
Yeah,
no, he didn't use the Force though.
No, didn't he use it to like open up his chest?
I want to say he did, but I'm also thinking he might have done that when he was like grappled and he's just like.
That's true. Yeah, he was. Oh, damn it. Yeah.
You know who did though? Mace Windu. Grievous's wheeze and cough.
Yeah.
That was in the Cartoon Network one. What's his name?
Gennady Tartakovsky.
Yeah. In the very end of that, when he was escaping with the Chancellor, he crushed his fucking lungs.
Yeah.
That's why he had a wheeze. But then they retconned it and they gave him a fucking wheeze.
They did a
long before that, because that was at the fucking very end of the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
the Siege of Mandalore took place at the same time as the Battle of Coruscant.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because remember, like when she was going to capture Maul, and Anakin's like, "I can't help you. We just got called back to Coruscant. The Chancellor's been abducted."
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that happens like, and it's right. Episode 3. It's the very first scene in Episode 3 is they're rescuing the Chancellor. So
very true. So one thing I did notice with Enoch and the Night Troopers is that the Night Troopers all had that red, kinetic tape shit on their armor. He did not as far as I could see.
Yep.
And he had a voice. He spoke. The other ones did not. So I suspect that he is not whatever they are. That he is somehow still alive, or like at least not mindless. So, I mean, I don't know what that is, or, if the red tape means specifically that, like, oh, yeah, they are under the effect of their magic, or even if it's tape, it might just be like, a sign that they've been, manipulated by the Great Mothers. Who the hell knows? I'm sure we'll find out in a book or something like that.
Hey, man, God bless the people who do breakdowns and lore updates.
Yeah.
Because now we don't I don't need to feel obligated to read the fucking whole comic book series that just came out about whatever characters.
Yeah.
Right? But when I want to know about those characters in canon, I can just turn on Star Wars Explained or something, and they'll have done like a 8-minute fucking quick video about every time this character is shown up in books and comics.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool. That's interesting. I just got to learn about like Black Chrysanthemum, right? Like just a fucking gross fan service cameo in fucking Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I thought they used him okay. Like it was a little awkward. Book of Boba Fett was fucking awful, man.
It was just used to tie all the other stories together.
Yeah, so overall, we're to 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
I know me personally, I gave like the first two like a 6.5, and I think I gave the third one a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they've done less than an 8 or 8.5, even possibly less than a 9 since. Like 4, 5, and 6 were fucking pretty good. And all taken together, like the plot is still somewhat coherent. I
Mm-hmm.
still am kind of intrigued by elements. Like, who
Yeah.
the fuck is Balin Skull looking for?
Yeah. Exactly. What is he
People are
after?
like, oh, maybe it's Abeloth, the mother of the fucking, Mortis family.
That seems to be the most popular one at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty popular. And then the other one is the Zepho, right? Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's just the kind of the origins of when all of this happened before there was a concept of a light side versus a dark side, and
Yeah.
like all of that stuff. Wow, I got like fucking weird either bug bite, I don't know, something on the side of my finger fucking itching like a motherfucker. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
And mosquitoes will do that.
I think it is a
Yeah.
mosquito or possibly a fucking spider or something.
Well, I don't think I really, aside from the reuniting with Ezra and all that stuff, which was pretty, just kind of like, hey, it happened, cool, moving on with the story.
A lot of people complained about that.
Yeah,
They
I
said,
mean, I don't
we
mind. They're
haven't
gonna
seen
do
each
what
other
they're
in so
gonna
long,
do.
we wouldn't run at each other and embrace. No, there are people that I've wanted to see that I hadn't seen for a long time. And when you
Yeah.
finally do see them, it's just kind of like,
Want a beer?
yeah, it's kind of like I would say it's kind of like a Han and Lando thing, right?
Yeah.
No, how you doing, you old scoundrel? Like, it's mostly like, let's
You
stick
still
around,
slinging
right?
malt liquor?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it really fit both of their characters.
Yeah. She's a
I think
Mandalorian.
I think it showed how good of friends they were, that they could just kind of be like joking with each other and then the long embrace. Like they did have like a long, meaningful hug.
Yeah, well, they're both doing the Jedi training thing. She's a Mandalorian, warrior culture. I doubt there's a whole lot of hugging. The armor would kind of make it so you're like, okay, good. Yeah, it wouldn't be a very satisfying hug, is what I'm getting at. So it makes sense to me that they would just trade words rather than all this affection. Like I always think it's so stupid when you see mostly women, but guys too, who meet up and they're just like explosion of sound as they scream each other's names and it's like, no, if I can calm down, stay away from me.
Yeah, you know why? Because it's fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
The
so this
reason
is
it
real.
doesn't resonate is because it's fucking fake.
Yeah. And so, hey guys, this Star Wars thing being calm and all that stuff, that's what real friendship looks like. None
Yeah,
of this
when
screaming.
I see my really good friends, I mean, like, when you and I got to the campsite and Adam was there,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
we of course came and gave each other hugs, but that wasn't the first
Yeah.
thing we did.
Yeah.
We literally picked up in conversation like we've been hanging out all
Yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. And then we got beers,
and that's
and
kind of how
then
it is. And then it's like, oh, how you doing, buddy? That kind of thing. But it's just kind of like,
and then joked
wow,
about each other's
goddamn.
hair because we're all getting old and at various stages of our hair falling out. Yeah, it's happening, man. Don't worry about it. I'll be the last to go.
I don't know. I don't look that bad. I'm a little thin up top.
I thought it was
I'm getting a
interesting.
little thin on the front, but I'm not bad.
Yeah, you're good.
Considering I have so many friends that are already like full fucking balls.
Santa Claus, dude. Fucking look like Santa Claus from the movie The Santa Claus. With the bald spots up front and it's gray everywhere else. Yeah.
So yeah, no, anyway, I thought that the introduction was just fine. I didn't
Yeah.
really have too big of a problem with it. I feel like they did it at the proper time in the episode. I think that you're gonna get, I fully expect the way this show has gone is that you'll get at least a satisfactory amount of catch up in conversation.
Yes. In the next episode. I think next episode is going to be more split in between the two parts of the story that are being told now, with maybe like a little bit of Hera thrown in to remind us that she's still alive. Maybe not. I mean, they could kind of just stop with her at this point and be fine.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
trying to tie in the elements of the Rangers of the. I heard that on Rebel Force Radio.
Mm.
Is that they said part of the thing with Mando and all these other shows is that a lot of the stuff that they're feeling compelled to put in, where you're like, oh, that's kind of a cool element. I'm
Mm.
glad that they are catching us up on what's happening in the galaxy, but like it feels a little out of place. It feels out of place because there was supposed to be a whole fucking show that did nothing but explore the politics of the New Republic and how could you have a government that's
Oh.
like, oh no, we don't need a military, and then the First Order is like, cool, well, we know that power flows from the barrel of a fucking blaster, motherfuckers. So pew pew, you know.
You could be nonviolent
It's
all
like
you
make a
want.
big base that does nothing but big pew pews, planet destroying pew pews,
More pew pew.
Hosnian cataclysm pew pew.
Oh my god.
Fucking crazy.
The late bombardment pew pew. But
What
yeah.
are you looking at? Wikipedia?
Yeah, I pulled over Zepho just to give it a look, but I haven't had any time to look it up.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. But other than that, though, I mean, obviously, for me, like the Dathomirians and the Night Sisters and everything, like complete change. And so I was like, how did they bridge it from where the Night Sisters were originally an off branching of a female Jedi who was exiled to Dathomir, who ended up training a bunch or an
Oh, is that
all-female.
Legend?
Yeah, Legends ended up training like
Yeah,
all
no.
female. They threw it away simply by saying that the Jedi had no record of an exiled Jedi named Alia. And that was the end of the story, and that's how they threw out the entire Legends canon.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's different kinds of lineages,
Yeah.
right? I think that there could be like an ancient force using kind of coven, right? Matriarchal coven. And also it could have been formalized into an institution known as the Night Sisters of Dathomir by somebody who had that kind of institutional understanding of the force.
Yeah. And that was the thing,
Right.
is apparently the law of light, which was like her like Bible for how to be a good Jedi, survived the canon jump. So the book that was created by the Legends character is still there with no connection to the Legends character.
Okay. Yeah, I think as far as I know, canon, which is a Dathomir, are from Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And Rebels. And now we know that they it was. And when they say ancient homeworld, the thing is that like most spacefaring species, like you could arguably have multiple homeworlds.
That is true. I think that's not going to be the case, though. Just, I don't know. I think my analysis of Pretty is probably pretty accurate.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
I think that was a place. And my question is, how does it connect to the rest of its own galaxy?
Yeah. And I have a feeling that it doesn't.
Clearly that's the place where like a lot of the religious iconography and ceremonial magic took place because of its importance as the gateway between these two galaxies.
Yeah.
And because of its connection to the Purgil and and early hyperspace travel or whatnot. I mean, there's I think it's even in canon now too that like early spacefaring was done by Force users because you didn't have navicomputers and you didn't have surveyors that were, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these surveyors in every little nook and cranny, documenting every little fucking chunk of ice in the fucking galaxy, right? Like, basically to make hyperspace travel safe. And setting up navigational beacons and all the other stuff that's involved on the back end with making that system work. And you saw that in Rebels, right? When they traveled to the Lasat homeworld, they thought that the Empire had wiped out the Lasat, and they're like, no, we have this fucking. That was just kind of it was our homeworld, but it was also kind of a colony. Like we have other homeworlds.
Yeah.
Right. And the
Least
only way
retrieval.
they could get there was through mysticism and through a magic ceremony that uses the Force to navigate.
Yeah.
So, like, I see that there's a lot of those elements basically being brought into live action. That,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, the Force, one of the things that made the Force so goddamn important is because it was the only way to fucking move between planets
Yeah.
at first. Otherwise, it was not, it was never going to be technically feasible for us to do this. It took us doing it by magic before we were able to develop the technology to do it.
Yeah. And now we have a system that's set up so well that we can navigate. And the thing is, it's not everywhere. And it's slow going now because all the Force users are dead.
No, one of the first campaigns that the first campaign I ever game mastered, that was the whole fucking premise.
Yeah.
Was that you were basically paid by a corporation to just go out and map fucking space and look for fucking places that might be economically beneficial to fucking exploit for minerals and other resources.
Yeah. I've done one of those campaigns. It was probably the best one. It was the most memorable one anyway. I suspect, that Eupridia is like one of these stars out here at the edge where like everything's rotating around this way and it's just dragging along and never really getting to do anything interesting, just out in
Can
the
you bring
middle
it
of
up
the
on the
woods.
main screen? Or is that the main screen?
This is the main screen. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah. Everyone's seen it. Yeah, yeah. So I suspect it's one of these like straggler ones that's out near the edge that probably doesn't have any other interactions. The
Yeah,
nearest stars are
I
like
think it's a
100 light
different
years away.
galaxy.
No, I'm saying it is, but what I'm saying is that in its own galaxy, I think that it is
Oh,
very much on the edge, and that's why getting in the
where
mouths
is
of whales seemed like a good
Cetos?
call.
Is
Cetos?
Cetos on the edge of the galaxy too?
That I
Because that
don't
would make
know.
sense to connect two edges of two different galaxies.
Yeah, but they would have to line up. Otherwise, like it could literally be as far away apart as possible, then as close as possible, and that would take like 100,000 years. Like most galaxies, take at least like 100,000 years to make a full rotation.
Ah, I see
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
wouldn't actually matter.
yeah,
It's not real anyway,
yeah.
but also they're
Come on.
connected by magic.
Yeah, and
It just happens to
hyperspace.
be in magic space whales.
Space.
What did you think about hyperspace though?
How it works, or what do you mean?
No, just their depiction of it. I really appreciated that they had a different like
Oh,
color schema and like kind of
yeah,
like crazy like squiggly fucking bright lights or bright colored lines that flash through it instead of the normal just kind of like blue spiral. I thought that was really kind of interesting to like,
yeah,
and then it was seen through both eyes, the eyes of those on Eye of Sion, right?
yeah,
Elspeth and crew, and also Ahsoka and Huyang inside the whale. Like,
yeah,
was shown that that kind of hyperspace in the whale was fundamentally different from hyperspace by a engine.
yeah. It's called like a slip tunnel or something like that in the stories. Um,
Oh, we are not even going to get to Bulgaria. This is great.
Probably not. But what I found most interesting about it was that was travel through the void, and so you can almost be assured that all that light is not just like stars passing by, like it would be in Star Trek. And so that's what hyperspace looks like. There's just like twisting, shafts of light and everything, and that is what existence in hyperspace is like. Regardless of where you are, almost. And so like that's kind of interesting. Yeah, that means that like light and everything behaves incredibly differently. Gets stretched out and all that. So yeah, yeah. Again, hyperspace is basically magic now. It always kind of was because there was no real explanation for it. You're just like,
Faster
oh,
than
it's a
light
parallel
travel is
dimension.
magic, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically just like, well, yeah, but
Most
there are
realistic
different.
sci-fi is like
Yeah,
Aliens, where like Ripley comes out of
yeah,
stasis and she's like, "Oh, I guess my daughter's probably dead by now." Because when
yeah,
I left, she was like 25 or 30 years younger than me, but then I've been asleep for 75 years.
yeah. Yup, and that is the case, and that is probably how most species will start out. If we're one of them, we'll do those
And
generation
I don't even
ships.
think stasis could work.
No, it's probably going to be generation ships, and
Yeah,
there's a
I
lot
was
of
gonna say you have to basically be able to fucking breed.
yeah, and that's probably not. See, the thing is, like that calls into question even more, like is it morally correct to condemn a bunch of unborn generations to surviving in a completely artificial environment on the off chance that they get to a star with a habitable planet? Or should you just not make the journey at all and die on the planet that you started on? So, like, yeah, I have a feeling that we'll face a lot of moral challenges if we ever get to that point. And but ultimately, people will go through with it. They'll be like, "Well, I'm volunteering, and my children can suck it. I don't care."
Yeah, or we would just do what we did back in the day with like Australia and like Georgia and shit. Just make penal colonies
Yeah.
and
Well,
be
also
like,
you can just make a religion
well,
out of
we
it
don't
too.
got room to keep you, and you're a criminal because everybody's a criminal under our law because we have to basically like coerce you into existing in this society because we're offering you nothing of value.
Yeah. I suspect there will be, a lot of spiritual or religious aspects to it. Where you're like, oh, it's a great, mission sent down from above for us to travel the void and get to the next star or something like that.
Yeah, and the next star is not even that far.
It's only like 4.5 light years away. It's pretty close.
4.5 light years.
And yeah, I think 4.5. Or
Yeah, does it have a habitable planet though?
how would we know? Telescopes aren't that good yet. Like even with all the billions spent on Hubble and stuff like that, like we can't do direct imaging of atmospheres.
I thought we were able to ascertain things like
We're getting closer.
Temperature, the gas makeup of the atmosphere, and things like that.
You can do the gas makeup of the atmosphere because you can break that down with one of those like chromatosphere or some shit like that. I forget what it is, but it breaks and shows you the lines of interference. And so if the planet's in front of the star, from our point of view, if there's missing light, then you can kind of gauge what's probably in the atmosphere. So yeah, you can kind of tell, and you can guess from how close it is and the content of the atmosphere what the average surface temperature probably is. But we're nowhere near close enough to be like, oh yeah, there's definitely life there.
Yeah, and like it would be a really long-term project. Like we've sent Mars probes. Don't we also have? I only thought we sent a rover to Mars. Did we not send rovers to other planets, or do we just have satellites in orbit around Jupiter?
We have satellites and we have non-mobile, like basically satellites that can crash. We sent landers to Venus, but not any rovers, just because no one's figured out a way to let them survive long enough.
It's too hot and there's too much radiation.
Yeah, and so mobility is probably not going to be important. It would all. I'm willing to bet in the end it's going to be cheaper to just send a shit ton of like
little probes that can
little
just
tiny
send
probes
back
that
a
are
bunch of
mobile.
data real quick, and then before they
And
get vaporized.
Yeah, just like we do with the little mini satellites. We haven't sent any rovers anywhere but Mars and the moon, as far as I know. I think that's it. But there is a plan to send a rover to one of the moons in the outer solar system. I forget which one, but it has like an ice layer, and so I think it's Enceladus. And so you drill down through with basically like a heated metal weight that is heated by a radioactive element, and you just burrow through the ice, and then it has a subterranean, or not subterranean, a submarine rover, more or less. That's the big plan for that one, but that's probably decades off.
So they're gonna drill through this ice on this moon of an outer
solar system,
Jupiter, Neptune, or something.
Yeah, Saturn, something like that.
Drilling, Saturn. They're gonna drill into the fucking, and then put a little submersible drone down there that can take some samples of what's the liquid. Is it so cold that it's like actually like liquefied petroleum or something like?
Can we harvest it? Yeah.
Well, no, it couldn't be that because there's no carbon.
No, there's plenty of carbon. What are you talking about? Carbon's everywhere, man.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I always find it's fascinating that like did two things like it's like the cohesive property of water and the stability of water as a molecule, like as it and as basically being a vehicle that can give up hydrogens and oxygens as needed, like for various fucking processes.
Yeah,
fascinates me as much as it fascinates me that the whole reason that we talk about carbon-based life at all is because just the electromagnetism of a fucking atom
Yeah.
like favors particular relationships. And so we're like, yeah, like everything organic,
Yeah.
right,
It's
has
literally just
fucking
carbon
carbon in
bearing.
it because
Yep.
carbon just makes really stable nuclear bonds
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
molecular bonds, I should say.
Exactly.
It's just fascinating. It's just like that's just that simple math because it's just a property, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just a property that can be represented with a fucking number
Yeah. It
or a
just
series
has.
of numbers.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
just has four
fascinating to me
valence
that
electrons. Like all it is just four valence electrons, and so it can share and be shared with very easily, and so it forms all kinds of ornate shapes when bonded in different ways, and life has
yep,
figured out how
single
to take
bonds
advantage of
versus
that.
double bonds, blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah,
blah.
yeah. And life has figured out how to take advantage of that and create a little bit of
Yeah,
reverse entropy in a very small area. I was talking about that
yeah,
earlier today.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
The
yeah. Like
kind of
life
process
basically defies entropy. Is just like fuck you, universe. We're gonna, make complex things instead of, less and
but
less complex things.
to go back to kind of like this, like Balin's goal and his like objective
Yeah,
in this kind of like breaking the cycle. There's some really kind of apropos politics in it that I've yet to seen anybody cry about. Although Critical Drinker posts something negative about fucking Star Wars every week.
good.
Um he's really just a fucking prick. I don't know. He's really popular though. People love that motherfucker, but he's just like just insufferable. And in his critiques, because it's just like you can never say there's anything good. Like,
Who Yang,
and I'm like, I have
fight me.
plenty of criticisms, but one of my criticisms is not that fucking Disney just wants to make all fucking men into like women
Yeah,
by taking
yeah,
away any masculine energy. I'm like, there's plenty of fucking masculine energy in Star Wars. There really is.
yeah. Lando Calrissian has the lion's share of it.
Yeah, that motherfucker. And they didn't hide that. That was Solo was Disney. He's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I fuck my robot. I'll fuck Han Solo. I'll fuck just about anything. I've also heard people say because Donald Glover and his brother, who they co-wrote and also won like fucking, I forget which awards. They won several different awards of several years for different seasons of a show they wrote called Atlanta.
Okay.
And I've never seen it. I think the basic premise is like someone's kind of like an up and coming rapper, and then it's about his brother being his manager. I don't actually know what it's about, but they've gotten awards for it.
Okay.
So he's doing very well as a creative. Plus, I think he got a Grammy.
Yeah.
Didn't Childish Gambino get a fucking Grammy?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure he
So
did.
he's like, people are like, I don't know why they would even put him in charge, and we don't need a Lando show. And I was like, as a creative, he's doing pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, by any metric we measure, like the success of a creative, like motherfucker's got a Grammy and a bunch of TV awards and shit. Like,
Hmm.
I'm sure he would do just fine
Yeah.
playing this like super eccentric, hypersexual character. Like,
I demand it.
I would love to see, and I think it was either in Rebels or was it in the sequel trilogy where he's like the Lando Calrissian Chronicles, and he was like record. No, I think it was in Solo. Yeah, in Solo, he had a recorder and he was like kind of recording, like telling
Oh
stories
yeah.
of his exploits and
Yeah.
adventures. That would be the way to structure that show.
I would just have
'Cause
each
again, a bunch of
episode be a story of his.
or not even like that as a serial, but like a bunch of small arcs that
Yeah.
are told. So you have these kind of self-contained stories with some similar characters between them, but largely like, you know, are
Billy D.
largely
Williams still
new.
alive? Can
Who's
he be the
this?
narrator? I don't know. Is Billy D. Williams alive? Would he be the
I heard
narrator?
that was the basic concept is they would have Billy D. Williams basically narrating and introducing things, and then it would be Donald Glover as young Lando. And
He's
I think
86
that would
though.
be
We need
fucking
to do it
phenomenal.
now. We need to do it right
Yeah.
now.
And people are online being like, we didn't even want a Solo. Why the hell would we want a Lando show? I was like, because he's a fucking scoundrel. And because Lando Calrissian is a character that has a lot less fucking baggage than Han Solo. Like, people were genuinely mad. Guess what? Harrison Ford didn't even want to be Han Solo for the fucking whole original trilogy.
Yeah.
It's common knowledge that he wanted George Lucas to kill his fucking character. And then George Lucas said, no, your character is popular. I'm not going to kill your character.
You're going to be a
And he's
damn
like, fuck.
scoundrel.
And then he comes back for the sequels, and they're like, we have to have you. And he's like, all right, but I don't want to do any of the fucking campy bullshit. I don't want to have no, like, grand reunion with fucking Luke and Leia. I don't want to do any of this shit. I just want you to kill me. And they're like, we can kill you this time.
I was looking for not this, and I found this, and we should absolutely look at this. The Sarlacc was able to pull down a spaceship, but not Lando Calrissian, making Lando by far the strongest living being in Star Wars canon. Oh, man.
Granted, also, the Sarlacc was eating really good that day.
Mhm.
And it eats for a very long time.
Yeah.
It gets so little sustenance that it can exist with very little food for probably centuries, is my guess.
That is actually a thing too. If you overfeed a Venus flytrap, it is actually bad for it. I found that out by
I
killing
think
one.
you can overfeed, like, even just like in our own like common knowledge existence, like snakes and other lizards and stuff, like, you know, they have evolved to eat very infrequently.
Mhm.
And so it's like they'll eat and then they might not eat again for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And probably towards the end of that 3 or 4 weeks, they just like they're able to shut their bodies off.
Mhm.
And they just slow their own metabolism down. Now, they're not conscious of it. It's just a biochemical process.
Right,
But they're like,
right.
hey, you don't have a lot of energy, so we're going to shut down all these systems that are not needed.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can just float there.
Yep. Just exist until that one thing comes by and you're an alligator and you can fucking snatch that shit. And then you're fueled up. The only time you really need to have energy is when you're A, trying to obtain more energy, or B, breeding.
Yeah.
Breeding pregnant, right? Because even then, they don't rear their young. There is some behavioral evidence that like alligators and crocodiles have like some kind of like sense of motherhood, I guess you could call it, right? Like sense of wanting to care for their young, but they're not. That's not generally how they are. It's not like adult or like humans, right? Where our brains are so big and our heads are so big to have big brains that like it's called the fourth trimester.
Yeah.
Like in books about child development, like straight up, like the first 3 months of a fucking baby's life, they're still a fetus.
Yeah.
Developmentally, they are not. That's why they don't really hold their heads up, and that's why
That's why the head plates aren't merged yet.
Yeah, the head plates aren't merged. And a bunch of other kind of like small details. Like, shut the fuck up, bro. What the fuck? No.
I can hear that.
No.
Yeah, Bad Kitty. My papa.
Bad Kitty. Because my window's open and the our vermicompost is right outside the window, so he can climb up on the bathtub and come like right up at the window and stick his face up.
That's why you want to switch
he hasn't
rooms.
ripped through the screens yet.
That's why you want to switch rooms. I know what's up. You want to get away from
That's
this
part of
goddamn
it.
cat.
No, I want to switch rooms because I want my girls to have their own bedrooms.
That's true. They need it. They're old enough.
Yeah, Soph's almost a fucking teenager.
That's the age when my sisters split rooms. I think Amber was like 10 or 11. And she was just like, I'm so tired of being in the same room as my other sister. I want out. She doesn't clean the room. I think that was her main complaint. She's like, she never cleans the room.
Yeah, Pete uses the space a lot more and makes the larger messes. And it's hard because we can't hold Soph accountable to it, but then also at the same time, like we're trying to be really conscious that like we're not entirely sure this is all Pete's responsibility.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna make you both do it, but we're in a lose-lose situation. Either, you know,
One
either it's
learns that she
absolutely
can
none
do
of your
less.
mess and we're making you clean it up, or it's like partly your mess and we're making Pete clean it up by herself. Like,
Yeah.
so the way to fix that is to give them their own space to be responsible for.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, I thought that the intro to Thrawn was fine. I thought the
Yeah.
introduction to Ezra and Sabine's re-meeting was fine. The world building I thought was great.
Mhm.
I liked the lightsaber fight with Sabine. It looked like she reflected a blaster bolt, but it did not look intentional. Did you catch that?
No, I thought it was her hitting the
Oh
wrist
no, she
piece.
reflected a blaster bolt.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But I don't think it was intentional because she like turned around swinging and it like went pew, pew, and bounced off. But I don't know. Maybe I missaw it. But it looked like she was reflecting a blaster bolt.
Nice.
I'll
have to watch that.
I thought the fight was pretty well choreographed.
She left that one guy alive at the end.
They call them howlers. Was kind of like sad, but also funny.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
Son of a bitch, leaving me when I needed you. Yeah. I did like
Which
that
was
she left one
weird.
person alive, perhaps to either go back and tell the others, like, hey, don't fuck with this girl. She killed like 6 of us. Or bring everyone. Then they'll have to fight them off.
Yeah, or maybe they saw the lightsaber and maybe they've seen that before, or it's part of their
Yeah, that's
mythology
true.
because maybe it came up. Because I cannot believe in 25,000 years, with this also very importantly, that the reason that Balin is propelled or compelled rather
Mhm.
into searching for this greater thing is he's like, I wouldn't fucking believe it, but so far the stories are turning out to be true. So if
Yeah.
all these stories are true, why would that story not also be
Yeah.
true? Right? Like, which I think is fascinating that it's kind of like, and I thought that when Hu Yang is like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away,
Yeah.
like was just I fucking melted, man. I gotta fucking
Hu Yang.
No, it's great. It's great. It's fun storytelling.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. People are so fucking critical, and I really actually genuinely like the show. It's never going to be Andor, but like Tony Gilroy is a phenomenal fucking actor who had a lot of writing fucking awards or credentials. Like I think he already has like 1 or 2 Academy Awards or something. Or has been nominated, I should say.
Okay.
You can go ahead and play. It'd start that off, but yeah, it's never gonna be fucking Andor. It won't, because Andor is Andor, and Andor is the GOAT, and I don't think we'll ever get a show that good. And I'm
you don't want to tell the same story over and over again either.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried that the writer's strike will affect the quality of Andor, but I trust that whatever they complete will be to a standard that they set for themselves, which is very high.
Yeah. Hey, writer's strike might be over now. Last I read, they were in discussions about a like an early revision contract. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
So maybe let's do an update on that Thursday.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Bulgaria Thursday.
Damn
we
it.
didn't even get to Bulgaria today because we spent the Bulgaria time bullshitting about fucking RPGs.
Yes, which is always worth it. Never let anyone tell you it's not.
Shooting the Poodoo.
Yeah.
We just needed a chill kind of day. I'm kind of tired. I've been actually finally readjusting my schedule to where like I wake up reliably without an alarm at like 7:15, which is it's been a long time.
Yeah. We did a lot of organizing this weekend, so like I'm tired, but
yeah, if you have any tips, we should definitely connect on a phone call the next few days or so.
For sure, man.
Got any tips on organizing? And I need all the help I can get.
You got to spend a lot of money on shelves and shit like that. That's the real. There's no secret. You just got to buy a lot of shelves, or in our instance, what you call
bins and totes and
cube units. Surprisingly.
Oh yeah, you were talking about those ones from IKEA,
yeah.
and then you get little baskets.
Yeah, we got ours from Walmart, and there's like a 3x3 one, and then like one that's like a a 2x2 square, and then there's like a rectangle. It's 1x2 underneath it. So you put. I think there's a sewing machine down there now.
And they have a standard kind of size, and then there's a
standard size. Yeah. It's 13-inch interior diameter for each cube in the unit itself, and then most of the time it's really hard to find any that are actually 13 inches. Most of them are 12 or 12 and a half, the actual cubes that go inside. Oops, what did I do? I don't know what I did. There we go. But for the most part, once you have the cubes, you just got to get smaller things to put inside of them. So organization is all about putting boxes inside of boxes, but knowing what's inside each of the boxes that you just put inside the box.
Like Russian dolls.
Yeah, Russian nesting crap, basically.
Speaking of Russian dolls, that fucking Shin Hati is a hottie. I like her character a lot.
Can't believe they named her
she's Russian, isn't she?
Oh, she's Ukrainian.
Oh, well, fucking... It's all the same. Ukraine will be Russia soon enough.
I was gonna say it. It
God
was before,
willing.
and it probably will be again.
In Salah.
Well, that was actually part of what we were going to talk about with Bulgaria. So we'll get to that.
We're going to talk about with Bulgaria. God damn, what a fucking crazy world. And this is the end of American Empire. It's fucking wild. And here we are just losing ourselves in entertainment, but we finally have Star Wars that we can be let's just lose ourselves in some Star Wars stories and talk about a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away where the Force was created by ancient space witches. And you're like, this is cool. I'm here for this. And then there's a dude who's like, there's a power here. We need to unlock. We got to break the cycle. And you're like, oh, I'm fascinated what you want to do. And your fucking apprentice is fucking inquisitive and she's got the fucking never blinking eyes. And the makeup's real good. She looks like she has what do you call those? Fetal alcohol syndrome. Her eyes are fucking 6 inches in the back of her fucking head. Then,
but she's a hottie too somehow.
But she's fucking Shin Hati. Yeah, they're talking about them chasing sun and moon and their kind of origins of their name and how that might fit into the story. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm here for it, and I'm okay having a distraction. I was telling you I got a bunch of cases from my fucking offices packed full of boxes from Uline. Bought a bunch of buckets, some with gamma lids, some with just kind of gasketed lids, so we can actually start putting up food. They just got a couple of the kind of bulk bags that we have just sitting around the fucking kitchen. Got those up in nice fucking buckets. So as far as organizing is concerned, right? We're moving that direction. We're gonna check in with the restaurant supply and make sure that they can get the kind of rice we want to store. And then long negotiations being yeah, I think that it's totally okay to stock 60 pounds of this rice that you want, that you say is your favorite rice. But also some of these buckets of rice could potentially sit here for 10 or 15 or 20 years. That's the reason we're getting them and doing it the way we are, right? So it keeps for a very, very long time. It's we don't need to spend $2 a pound on that rice when we can get a comparable rice that might not be quite what you want, but is also has the same amount of fucking calories, right? For 35 cents a pound.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just recognize some of this is just going to sit here forever and we might never eat it.
So we're only paying 85
It's an insurance policy.
A prepper policy, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an insurance policy. If fucking shit goes south, we don't have to worry about fucking... I can forage enough fucking greens most months of the year if we just need vitamins and minerals and other things.
Yeah.
I know how to get that in my environment, but you can't meet that fucking calorie. You can't meet those calories. It's really fucking hard. Which is funny coming from two people who clearly eat more than fucking 2,200 calories a day. It's when you when push comes to shove, without processed foods and without access to an industrial food system, getting 2,200 calories a fucking day is actually really hard. It's a lot. That's why everybody ate bread, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, I gotta make some dough later on.
Why don't you go do that, man? Make your dough. This has been with Thunder Spas Podcast, Shooting the Poodoo, episode 33. We didn't even get to the politics bullshit. We'll save that for Thursday. We'll see you again here Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific time as we shoot the Poodoo, talk about Bulgaria. We're going to do an update on the writer's strike, and we'll figure something else out. It'll be fun. And with that, we like to remind you here that when liberty dies, it usually dies with
thunderous applause.